And next up, as Bryson mentioned, we have Chloe. And every time I intro Chloe, I feel like I'm totally fanboying, but really Chloe has done a lot for us at the industry. She's an advocate for hackers and hacker rights, which is what she's going to be talking about. But she's also not just talking about it, she's doing a lot about it. So co-founder of Women of Security, We Are Hackers, Women Hackers, the Hacker Book Club, have a podcast, really doing phenomenal things, and always a pleasure to intro you, Chloe, and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for the beginning in my introduction. That is awesome. Now I don't need to cover that slide anymore. Thank you. All right, you guys. I'm just gonna have my camera on at this part, and then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna turn off my camera so I can dive into the slides. I want to make sure that I cover every little thing, so I have a lot of notes, and I would rather look at you in the face when talking if I didn't have to look down at my notes. So I'm gonna turn off my camera, but I'll turn it back on right afterwards. Here we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, let's do this. All right, turn off my camera, but I promise I'll put it back on at the end because we have a lot to cover today. All right, first things first, welcome to Hacker Rights, and thank you, Scythe and UniCon, for having me here. We are going to go over quite a bit of stuff. So first thing first, I just want to say that this talk is completely dedicated to all the hackers who've been scared to disclose, to all the hackers who have been prosecuted for trying to do something good or doing their job, to all the people who are in the fight to bring rights for hackers. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chloé Messdaghi. I am an InfoSec advocate, and I guess you can call me an activist at times. I am the VP of Strategy over at Point3 Security. I'm the president co-founder of WOSEC, founder of We Are Hackers, which is formerly known as Women Hackers, and the podcaster for ITSP Magazine's The Uncommon Journey with Phil Wiley and Alyssa Miller. And I also run the Hacker Book Club, which we read a book written by the hacker community, or even the author themselves is a hacker in our community, every month, and we meet every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And yes, the author does attend, and also those that are mentioned in the book. And right now we're doing Tribe of Hackers Red Team Edition. That is my URL if you want to follow and keep up, or if you ever want to message, my DMs are always open on Twitter and Instagram. So now let's get into the juicy part, the important stuff. So we're going to dive into the current landscape, and I know that this is scary, but we're going to dive in it together. So first things first, I'm pretty sure you all know about the Equifax breach, and I'm pretty sure that some of you guys were actually impacted by it. But did you know a security researcher warned Equifax that it was vulnerable to the kind of attack that later compromised the personal data of more than 147 million Americans? Motherboard had learned about this and reported it. And then 6 months after the researcher first notified the company about the vulnerability itself, Equifax patched it, but only after a massive breach that made headlines had already taken place, according to Equifax's own timeline. But the real question is, what if no one reported the breach? And the sad news of it is that it happens often because hackers don't report a breach due to the fear of prosecution. And this statistic was discovered by the hard work of Meet El-Azhari, if you see at the bottom right there. She knows our laws prevent good hackers from doing what they do best, protecting you and me and everyone we love. And she's been spearheading the movement towards a safe harbor and talking about safe harbor. And HackerOne, in their 2018 hacker report, which surveyed over 1,698 members of the hacking community, found that almost 1 in 4 ethical hackers have not reported a vulnerability because the company in question doesn't have a VDP. If you don't know what a VDP is, it's a vulnerability disclosure program. And those who try to notify the company through other channels such as email or social media also claim they were frequently ignored or misunderstood. So why are hackers really scared here? Besides the prosecution looking for contact information and trying to read the policies have been a real burden to reporting vulnerabilities. Think about it. I mean, sometimes it takes us hours to find a contact information, sometimes days to weeks. And then we get to a point that maybe we shouldn't just do it anyway, because this is taking way too much time. And now we're just scared usually if they don't have a vulnerability disclosure program. And I want to also put out there that even if you are hired as an ethical hacker, they still get in moments where they can face prosecution. And this is one of them. So after DJI, the drone manufacturer, launched a bug bounty program, two researchers, Sean and Kevin, basically came across the program and wanted to learn a little bit about it and wanted to be part of it. For the scope, the bug bounty program covered all security issues in firmware, application, and servers, including source code leak, security workaround, and privacy issue. Kevin emailed them to confirm the scope to be safe, and it took them 2 weeks to finally confirm the scope. He then reported the vulnerability, and he was provided with $30,000 for the finding. However, the agreement of receiving it offered no legal protection for him. So he walked away. The revelations resulted in the company challenging his findings and seemingly threatening one with a lawsuit tied to the Computer Fraud Abuse Act, claiming he went out of scope regardless to the fact he made sure to confirm the scope. In return, he decided he was going to post the entire situation with all the conversations with DJI publicly. And yes, they then decided to stop trying to prosecute him at that moment, and it became a big PR situation for them. But if you go to his blog post, it's really interesting to see that in the email chain itself, there was a moment that they didn't realize that he was actually able to view the entire chain, even the internal chain. And in there, they were talking about how he's a threat to them and they need to take action immediately because he said that he would not want to take the money for the bounty. This is one of those things where DJI at the time, it was a brand new bug bounty program they were trying to manage on their own, but they didn't take the necessary steps to making sure that they run it perfectly well. And so this is one of the other things to think about in this. But remember, he was in scope. That's the most important thing. And he checked and he kept a paper trail, which every single person here should always keep a paper trail on everything just to be on the safe side. Now, another case is this. So in September of 2019, the Iowa State asked the cybersecurity firm Chloé to conduct a penetration test to see if its staff could gain access to sensitive data or equipment. So two Chloé employees found a door to the Dallas courthouse open, and when they closed the door to see if it would lock and then attempted to open it, an alarm was set off. Following a protocol, the employees waited for the police to arrive and they showed their paperwork. And initially they were told they were good to go. But moments later, a local sheriff showed up and arrested them. They spent the night in jail. The charges were later dropped in late January 2020. But it's one of those examples, once again, that a good Samaritan law would protect them from any kind of prosecution because they were doing the job that they were set out to do. They were not doing something malicious. They weren't exploiting without permission. They were doing what they do, and that is the most important thing. So Chloé has started doing this campaign on talking about how to protect ethical hackers. If you go to their website, I do recommend, if you want to get involved, to fill out that form that you see in that corner. And it's a great reading. Wired did an amazing job telling the story. It was like reading or watching a movie in my mind. But overall, language and what's in scope and or out of scope when disclosing or how to disclose can be so scary, and potential indictments especially, and it can keep all parties awake at night. And so it's really important to understand that even program managers, they're asking to be hacked but not get hacked badly. But they also need to understand how to conduct and handle situations when researchers are reporting something. But overall, everyone can agree, organizations and government all know it's probably needed at this time to have some sort of vulnerability disclosure program. And I know this is a scary subject, so here's some puppies to fill your spirit. And yes, I placed a cat for the cat lovers as well. Can you guys spot the cat? I know it's kind of hidden in there. And no, Sherlock and Luna are not on there. All right. So let's go back to this. Why are they so scared of us? So even though ethical hackers are not malicious actors, they're still being seen and treated as such. And because of this, it reduces the chances of reporting a vulnerability and could cause hackers to go to the dark side because they're seen as the same. So to the left is what you see when you type in criminal hackers, and on the right is what happens when you type in ethical hackers. Once again, lots of hoodie, darkness, and sometimes with the ski mask, which is so annoying. But I also want to say it's not just the imagery, it's also the language that's used in the media. And when I mean the media, it's referring to marketing and the press. So using the term hacker as someone as a criminal should now be used and changed as the term attacker, cyber criminal, malicious actor, and so on, because people don't know that there's a difference. So the question is next is, how does the imagery and language impact us? Well, it continues to feed the fear and stereotypes and biases that exist through social construction. Now, if you're wondering what is social construction, don't worry, we're going to dive into your brain so you can find out. So first things first, how does fear work? So for social engineers, this is our prime thing to do. We want to cause fear. So the first thing first is socially constructed beliefs are things that you were taught at a young age or indirectly through the news, from books, from images and whatnot. Basically, what it does is social constructed beliefs sort people as who's like me, who's not like me, or what is dangerous, what is not dangerous. And remember, people that are not like you are seen as a threat because you don't understand that, you are not them, so they're seen as a threat, a potential one. And because of this is one of the reasons why we are afraid of people that are different from us. And this is usually also the reason why when you say, oh, I'm a hacker or I work in the hacker community, the person outside the community maybe takes a step back and their mouth drops or their eyes get a little bit big and suddenly they're a little bit afraid of you and they kind of want to wrap up a conversation and go elsewhere. And this is the reason because of the amygdala. So the amygdala is that sorting machine, that's your survival mechanism that's connected to emotions and your memories. So whenever you are felt that you're under threat or you're near a criminal, you are going to react in a fight versus flight way. And those are actions. Now, the thing is, the amygdala is some completely subconscious. So in other words, you don't even know that that's happening in your brain. However, the good news is that there is a part where it has to verify. So in the prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain is where it acts like the CEO. It determines whether or not to take an action and also uses logic to rationalize whether or not that person is someone of a threat. So say, for example, when you're talking to someone that you are a hacker, what happens is that their amygdala is sending a signal right away to the prefrontal cortex saying, warning, warning, danger, criminal near you. And then you come up with different ideas of what actions to take. Do you walk away from the conversation, or do you suddenly turn off your phone, or you turn off Bluetooth, whatever they're thinking and fearing at that moment. But the thing is to note about is that this is also the moment where you can challenge any socially constructed beliefs. And because socially constructed beliefs are based on stuff that you see in the media, one thing for sure is that they have an idea that you're already a criminal when you say you're a hacker. And so what happens is that until that is challenged by hearing personal stories of people in the hacker community, or the media doesn't change the way that they portray hackers and use the right terms, we will keep having this situation occurring. However, by sharing personal stories, we're able to actually change the way that they view us. And everyone has the ability to challenge their biases and the ways that they think. They just have to take the moment of a pause and take in a step back. And that's the most important thing, is to note that we can actually change people's beliefs of things. And the whole thing, how we do it, is that we start getting more transparent and open. We start sharing our stories. We start letting them know that actually we need a fact check, you need a fact check, and that's not right, and you're hurting me. And these are the reasons why, and these are the cases why. And this is what happened to my friends, my family members, and so on. So I just want to let you guys know that fear is something that we are triggered to do, and that's just how humans work. But we can always challenge beliefs, and that's the most important thing. So, resulting in, it's this type of mindset that's set by society, by people in the media, that is keeping us unsafe and preventing hackers what they do well in. And most companies are becoming more open to receiving information on vulnerabilities, but 94% of the Forbes Global 2000 still haven't published a VDP, something that they may come to regret these days. Companies are afraid of hackers. They don't want to create a vulnerability disclosure policies because of the lack of a bilateral trust amongst hackers and organizations and government. It's one of the reasons why 60% do not report vulnerabilities. because hackers are scared of these outdated laws such as CFA and DMCA in the US. Also, from interviewing attackers, one of the reasons they decide to move away from ethical hacking is the pay and the constant worrying of being prosecuted, regardless if they did something legal. This is also said similarly by those who switched from being an attacker to a hacker. The reason they switched was the insomnia of being arrested, because there are cases when organizations prosecute ethical hackers regardless if they were in scope, as we saw previously. So we're going to dive into this, and I want to remind you, I am not an attorney at all, so please just take this with understanding. So we need to dive into the current legislation that can be found in most countries around the world around hackers. So first, let's go into an anti-hacking law, and I'm going to use CFA as the example. So the Computer Fraud Abuse Act in the US cybersecurity bill was enacted in 1984 as an amendment to existing computer fraud law, which had been included in the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984. The law prohibits accessing a computer without authorization or in excess of authorization, also to be used when a researcher goes out of scope. This is the act used to prosecute hacking. Random fact, who has heard of war games? Did you know Ronald Reagan, he watched it, freaked out about hackers, and decided to push for CFA to happen? So let's go into the anti-circumvention laws. These are the copyright laws, and in Canada, it's called the Copyright Act, and here we call it the DMCA. Now, it was enacted in 1998, the copyright law that implements two 1996 treaties, the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, basically the right to repair, seeing reverse engineering as a breach of property. Now, who here in the room has ever read the terms and conditions for, let's say, an Apple product? Yeah, okay, I tried, I got bored, decided to watch a movie instead. But in general, they can be long and too much verbiage. It can confuse anyone, especially if English is not their first language. And this can lead to some serious miscommunication issues for ethical hackers that don't really speak English. And clearly, these laws are so old and out of date. And honestly, they were created out of fear, not empathy, by taking the time to understand what is needed, why law should only prosecute malicious actors, aka criminals, and not good hackers. And once again, the reasoning for that is because in the media, it showcases us as criminals. That every single person who does any hacking is a criminal. And because of this stereotype that still lingers to this day, we haven't seen any changes. So overall, takeaway, laws prevent good hacking in the same way they prevent attackers. And we need good hacking. And I want to dive more into CFA because I hate the CFA and you should too. So once again, the Computer Fraud Abuse Act passed in 1984 has grown widely outdated, and that it offers prosecutors discretion to threaten huge potential fines and jail sentences for relatively underserving violations of a computer policy. So first, CFA as written punishes exceeding authorized access to a protected computer, a phrase vague enough to inspire some broad interpretations. Another flaw in the CFA is the redundant provisions that enable a person to be punished multiple times for the same crime. These charges can be stacked on one on top of another, resulting in the threat of a higher cumulative fines and jail time for the same exact violation. This also allows prosecutors to bully defendants into accepting a deal in order to avoid facing a multitude of charges from a single solitary act. It also plays a significant role in sentencing. This ambiguity of a provision meant to toughen sentencing for repeat offenders of the CFA may in fact make it possible for defendants to be sentenced based on what should be prior convictions, but were nothing more than multiple convictions for the same crime. And it's most importantly to note, the CFA also gives companies the right to sue, okay? And the one thing you need to understand is hackers have more to fear from companies and states right now than the Justice Department. The DOJ has been working with trying to help ethical hackers, I think since 2013, 2014 time period, and been trying to do as much as possible. So the things you have to fear the most are companies and local states. And what I want to do next is dive into Aaron Swartz's case, because this is a great example to understand how the CFA works and how it can really hurt someone. For those that don't know about Aaron Swartz's case, in 2011, Carmen Ortez, the U.S. Attorney Office, charged Swartz with hacking into the MIT computer network to download millions of scholarly articles from JSTOR. It was supposed to be an act of civil disobedience meant to protest the restricted access to researcher, research funded by taxpayers. And because of this, the U.S. attorney brought charges that carried a maximum penalty of 35 years in prison and $1 million in fines. I want to pause there. I want you to hear that number. 35 years in prison for trying to get articles. This was not an attempt to hurt an individual in any shape or form, but yet the first-degree murder charge is at least 25 years in prison. Just think about that. Now, the thing to note about it is they were able to charge such years because of the way the CFA is written and the issues that have yet to be sorted since it was made into a law. Overall, looking at Aaron's situation, he was dealing with a 17-month legal battle, one that had no set trial date and wasn't ending anytime soon. And through SWARTZ's perspective, it must have been so overwhelming. And with the future of this legal battle cast into doubt, unfortunately, SWARTZ, he hung himself in his apartment on January 11, 2013. Following his death, federal prosecutors went on to drop the charges. His family stated, "It's the government's prosecution that contributed to his decision to take his own life." Because of Aaron and what he went through, folks came together to try to change the situation. And Aaron's Law was created in 2013. It didn't pass, and that's probably because there was a bunch of lobbyists that didn't want it to pass from company sides. But the thing to know about Aaron's Law was that it was going to remove the phrase exceeds authorized access and replace it with access without authorization, which is defined as to obtain information on a computer that the accessor lacks authorization to obtain by knowingly circumventing technological or physical measures designed to prevent unauthorized individuals from obtaining that information. It would also make sure that there wouldn't be any more duplicated charges, which is very important as we've seen. Now, the DMCA, we're just going to cover it really fast because it's important for you to know. The DMCA was passed in 1998 as an anti-privacy piracy statute, effectively making it illegal to circumvent copy protections designed to prevent pirates from duplicating digital copyrighted works and selling or freely distributing them. It also makes it illegal to manufacture or distribute tools or techniques for circumventing copy controls. But in reality, the controversial law effects has been much broader by allowing game developers, music, film companies, and others to keep a tight control of how consumers use their copyrighted works, preventing them in some cases from making copies of their purchased products for their own use or from jailbreaking smartphones and other devices to use them in ways the manufacturer disliked. Now, the thing to note about this the most is that no person shall circumvent a technological measure that effectively controls access to a work protected under this title. It does contain provisions for security research, but in most cases does not allow them to break down defenses put up by the manufacturer without prior permission, such as those wrapped around firmware. Now, the thing is with improvements to legislation, we can change where we stand today. But in order to do that, we must dive into 3 categories in which we've touched on because we need to work together to bring about a public change. So in order to have rights for hackers, we need to get the public on board. In order to do so, we need to dive into 3 categories. We need to press to push for public to become aware. In other words, we need to change the language and imagery of a hacker and start using cyber criminals for those who commit unethical hacking, or really separate the 2 groups. In order to help the press, organizations need to be on board with bilateral trust by having vulnerability disclosure programs. By showing they support hackers, the public changes their view in general. Lastly, to have organizations and public opinion to push and motivate Capitol Hill to get on board and update the current legislation that will protect ethical hackers. Overall, we need all 3 of these to get supporting hacker rights for it to become a reality. So how do we get there, you guys? Well, these are the 5 needs that we need to push for awareness for ethical hackers. Now, how we get there, I'm going to need your help because it is a community effort. It's a grassroots community effort, let's be real. The first step, there's this petition. It's for anyone out there that supports ethical hackers and want to bring about a change. It's the first step that I'm working on to bring attention to this matter. It's broken down by orgs, legislators, the media, the hacker community. Anyone can sign this who agrees with it. That means you can get your friends and families to sign it too. Feel free to sign and share. And yes, the link is right there. And then also, if you go to my Twitter profile, it is the pinned tweet at the very top. Now, the next thing I want to let you guys know is that this was something that I did as the following step. I partnered up with Brian on his adventure of Hacking is Not a Crime and combined the petition to take further actions needed. So Hacking is Not a Crime is a place for all ethical hackers to learn how to be part of a movement for rights and organizations that support us. You may even have seen some folks on Twitter with the Twitter handle on their profile. Those are actually our ambassadors. And we're doing everything possible to start making movements to change things. The second step, we need to remind people there's a difference between a hacker versus a criminal and attacker in the press when talking with them and when they share such stories to correct them. We need to let them know. And if you're wondering, how can I remind them? Think about this. Use the term locksmith as a hacker and a burglar as the criminal attacker instead of criminal malicious actor. People have a better understanding when you use that kind of phrase and that similarity. The other thing to note about this is that just recently today, one of the community members did tweet out asking the press to correct one of their stories, and they got back to us immediately. So if you want to take a look at that chain, I just tweeted it out, I think a couple hours ago, so you can get a good idea of what that looks like, but we have to let them know publicly. And if you do, tag myself and Hack Not Crime, the Twitter handle itself, so we can help follow up, because you shouldn't go at this alone. It's always good to have two people on a phone call with the press. Third step, we need organizations to partner and campaign with us. It's really important that companies step up, and Coalfire is one of them. We also need to push for organizations to have disclosure programs. So if you work at any company that doesn't have one, try to push them to do so. We need it more than ever before, especially with COVID-19. We're having more breaches than ever before. So we really do need to work together, you guys. The fourth step, contact your local representatives and update current legislation. Once again, you do not have to go at this alone. I'm here to help you and be that source to help you push forward. If you feel shy and awkward talking about it, just loop me in and we can do this together. Also follow the Van Buren versus United States case. It's the first time in a very, very long time the CFA is going to be re-looked at by the Supreme Court. And just remember, it's states and companies that are pushing hackers to be punished these days, not federal. Fifth step, support these type of groups. So I am the Calvary Disclose.io, CERT Coordination Center, so CERT CC, EFF, CTI League. And if there's any other orgs that is not on here, let me know so I can connect with them, because we need to support them. If that means volunteering, if that means donating, that means those. But contact them, find out how you can get involved. It is so important that we all participate now at this time. So main takeaways from this, overall, we need to push for awareness of ethical hackers, and how we get there, it's going to be all of us. And I may need your advice and assistance too to help bring about a change. So if you want to be part of this, reach out to me. Let's do this together. We can easily do this always. But most importantly, I just want to remind everyone that we must not give up. The change starts with you and me. Like I said, the community is a great place and we work together always, and we always will fight together for rights. So please do this, not just for you, do it for the community members, do it for the people that we know have gone through some tremendous, terrible times because of what they've done, even if they were in the right. And it's about time that we bring about a change. So please go forward with it. And if you're shy, don't worry, there's other ways how to do it too. I wanted to say a big thank you to Scythe and UniCon for having me, for everyone who is existing. A special thanks to Bo Woods, Harley Gager, Amit Elzar, and Casey Ellis for really providing further insight in the current situation. And to all of you guys, please stay safe, and thank you so much for having me. Once again, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll put my camera back on. Hi.
Hi, that was awesome. We got such good feedback on the Discord about it. And yeah, definitely we are a community and we all have to work together to push this forward. I just retweeted and shared that your tweet from earlier today on correcting folks in media through social media on how to use the terms correctly.
Excellent. And yes, it is a sticker, by the way. Someone did write that. It is a sticker. Hacking is not a crime is a sticker. So you can
Nice.
get stickers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, as always. Awesome talk, as always.
Thank
And
you.